Hi, everyone, and welcome to year 3 of the Trees Around the Globe Student Research Campaign, interview with a scientist and subject matter expert. My name is Brian Campbell, and I'm the lead for the Trees Around the Globe Student Research Campaign. Today, we will be talking to scientist Dr. Nancy Glenn. Let's get started. Hello, Dr. Glenn. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. How are you today?
I'm great. I'm great. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today, and we're really excited about your talk in the upcoming Trees Around the Globe Student Research Campaign webinar. So, first of all, where do you work?
I work at Boise State University in the Department of Geosciences.
Excellent. And what is your primary area of research?
So my primary area of research is actually multifold. It's very interdisciplinary. I utilize imaging spectroscopy or hyperspectral, as well as LiDAR remote sensing data to measure things about vegetation. I'm particularly interested in the structure and the function of vegetation, and more specifically about shrubs and trees, how big they are and how they function and how they change over time.
Excellent. And what kind of educational background do you need to get into what you're doing in the research you're involved in with your career?
Well, I think I learned a lot on the job, let's say, but my educational background is actually in engineering as well as in science. So I have degrees in geology, geological engineering, civil engineering, and geoengineering. And so I have a lot of earth science background as well as engineering and math background. And so I really think that the blend of engineering and science has served me really well, because I'm very interested in the technology and the engineering side of remote sensing, but I'm also interested in the science applications, particularly in monitoring the Earth's surface. And so having both of those, I think, is very advantageous.
Yeah, that's something we really try to push with the campaign, is that, we have the science, but we love the engineering portion of it, and we have to do the math. So when you have the mathematics, you have the engineering portion, and you have the science, it all comes together, to helping us understand what we need to understand in the real world just a little bit better.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, next question. How and when? Oh, no, sorry, let me go ahead. What type of questions do you hope to answer with your research, or have you been answering?
Yeah, so the type of questions that I'm interested in are both kind of on the applied side, as well as on the methodology side, as well as thinking about the future. So I'm interested in what are the, answering the questions about what are the best methods to measure trees and shrubs better so we can monitor them over time. I'm also interested in pushing the technology. How can we push imaging spectroscopy, hyperspectral, as well as LiDAR, whether it's from the ground, the air, or space, to make these measurements better? And how can we use them in unique ways to make better measurements? But then also, how I'm interested in how is the Earth's surface changing, and in particular, how is vegetation changing over time? And what will the vegetation be like in the future? So if we think about how things are changing around us and disturbances such as fire, what is the vegetation going to look like in 5 years, 10 years, 50 years for future generations?
I love that you said you're looking at it from the ground, which is what our Globe students do, and then the air, the airborne campaign type stuff, and then the satellites. So we really need that full picture of the space all the way to the ground. So that's excellent. That's great stuff. And that's what we're really trying to focus on with this campaign, is bringing all those variables together.
Yes, we definitely need to have on the ground observations to be able to validate what we're seeing from the air and space. That's super important.
Yes, that's what we're trying to get across. That's what we're trying to get across. Yeah, yep. And a lot of people do understand that. So yeah, that's excellent, especially the students. Yeah. Okay. How and when did your interest begin for the work of the research you're doing? How long ago did this start, your interest in what you're studying and what you're researching with trees and vegetation?
Well, I guess from a very early age, I've always been interested in the natural environment, but I also was very interested in engineering and math. And so really it all came together at university, where I learned how I can merge those together. And then I guess it really solidified when I first started working with land managers and the types of challenges and questions they were asking about how can we do this better? How can we monitor how our vegetation is changing and how can we make predictions about the future. Those were the sorts of questions that they were asking of me. And I got really excited that I could apply what I learned at the university to real world problems. And so I think, 20, 25 years ago, it all started to kind of gel together for me. And of course, I'm still learning and have so much more to learn. But yeah, I think that's kind of how it all got started.
Yeah, science is a continual learning process for sure. Yeah, and I like that you said that, applying the science to real world. That's a huge thing when we're talking about it, because a lot of times the science is super difficult to understand, but when you apply it to the real world, then the understandability is just better, So yeah, super cool. All right, so one more question. Might be a loaded question, but I hope it's okay. Can you give us one example of a question related to trees, land cover, vegetation, that you think a Globe student researcher should or might try to answer with their own research?
Oh, absolutely. How about measuring specifics about trees to help us quantify carbon? So a Globe student could really help by measuring how tall trees are, how many trees there are, how big those trees are. And even if they wanted to get even more specific, they could measure, or they could note the different types of trees. And then they could convert that into how much above ground carbon we have, because that's a really important measurement for us to have as we think about how things are changing and into the future. So the more that they can measure about how much we have and what we have, that would be super helpful and would be a really fun project.
Yeah, that's perfect. And educators and students, if you just heard that, rewind and listen to that again, because that's a perfect example of what, the type of research we're looking for. And we have lots of data. As Dr. Glenn mentioned, we have data from the GLOBE program, we have data from airborne campaigns, and we have data from satellites. So you bring all that stuff together, you have a lot of data to work with to help, answer these research questions that Dr. Glenn just mentioned. So, that's perfect what we're looking for. So I think that's it. So thank you, Dr. Glenn, for taking the time to speak to us today. And we look forward to hearing more about your tree and vegetation research in the upcoming webinar. Quickly, the webinar will be on Tuesday, September 15th, 2020. And this will be at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time or 6 p.m. UTC. And it's going to be called Kicking Off Year 3 with Tree Height Research Using Satellites and Ground-Based Instruments, the importance of tree and vegetation research to help us understand our changing planet. And you can check out the Trees on the Globe Student Research Campaign. And I'm going to quickly share my screen so you can check this out, so you can see exactly what this is. So you can just, the URL will be right here. And it's globe.gov/web/trees-around-the-globe. You can put /overview, don't even need the overview in there. So just wanted to say thank you once again, Dr. Glenn, and I think that'll do it. Thank you so much, and we look forward to hearing your presentation during the webinar on September 15th.
I look forward to it. Thank you.